Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for our latest episode of Bayut webinar, The State of Real Estate. Today, the topic that we have put together for you is around the commercial real estate. Over the past few months, we have focused on how residential landscape of the real estate in the UAE has been striving through COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID times, and we want to bring to the forefront today what are the developments on the commercial sector. We've seen some very encouraging announcements from the government lately, with addition to the stimulus package, which was initially announced in March. We did see that the one announcement that came on the 11th of July was more focused towards the commercial element of real estate. It had leverages for retail, for educational institutes, where there was waiving of fee for commercial and educational license. We also saw that the government is doing their bit to inject enough support through waiving of municipality fee for retail and hospitality, also giving them concessions on the tourism dinner fee. With all of that said, I'd like to share what we've observed here at Bayut with regards to intent on our platform and the leads generated over the last 6 months. In June, we did see that there has been a massive increase in commercial inquiries, with the numbers actually surpassing the ones that we saw in January and February earlier on this year. I'm no subject matter expert when it comes to commercial properties, so I'd like to call upon our guests for today. We have today Andrew Love from Cavendish Maxwell. We have Robert Thomas from Core Commercial, and we have Behnam Berg, who is the director of CRC. Come on, guys. Turn on your cameras. Let's say hello.
Good afternoon, Fadha. Hi, Andrew.
Afternoon. Hi, Andrew. All right.
Hi.
So we have a full panel on now. Andrew, as I introduced you, you are partner and head of investment and commercial agency Cavendish Maxwell. Behnam, you are the director of CRC, which is a Better Homes Group company, and Robert Thomas is the head of agency Core Real Estate. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you all are all set to share your experiences and educate us about the commercial market. Behnam and myself, we were chatting yesterday, and I asked him, it's like when people think of real estate, they think of residential brokerage normally. What made him pick commercial brokerage? So Behnam, would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Yes, so I just want to say hi to everyone who's listening. Thank you for the introduction. I'm personally worked in the residential sector before, and I moved from residential to commercial. And although I say there's some highlights and similarities between residential and commercial, but essentially commercial is more B2B, and you're catering for companies and businesses. So I would say there's a lot of similarities in terms of the transaction, but dealing with clientele, it's not. And working for both sides, I really enjoy working commercial because I've got a corporate sales background, and I like to work with organizations. And I would say personally, the leads are more qualified. Organization, when they make that decision to move, it's a decision process that they've thought about. And in general, in UAE as well, economy is based on new businesses and companies. So before I would say people get a house, they need to get a job. So I would say it's nice to work in commercial, and we have a very nice industry in India.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think Robert has a similar kind of story to tell. He told me he's been in the UAE for the last 14 years, right?
Yes, so I came here in 2006 as a very young man before the great hairs in the beard. So yeah, I'm in my 14th year now, and 10 of those 14 years have been in commercial real estate. So yeah, I was here during the last crisis, you can say, in 2008 and 2009. I worked through that during commercial real estate, and yeah, seen my career obviously grow in the last 10 years. And seeing commercial real estate itself evolve in those last 10 years. Clientele has become more sophisticated, profile of the client has become more sophisticated. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I think it's only going to get bigger and better within the commercial world. So exciting times ahead. challenging few months, but exciting times ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure we have a lot of young and inspiring people in our audience today who would like to ask you guys what's the best way to go forward on this path, as you both make it sound very interesting and different from the regular brokerage. Andrew, my friend here, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, look, echoing sort of Robert, I've been here now approaching 10 years. My background started in the UK in commercial real estate 15 years ago as a chartered surveyor. So I originally trained as valuation, mainly for secured lending for banks, and then moved into sort of investment and income producing assets in the UK, which is a very dominant sector within the market. And then moved over here. It was originally to do valuation, but I soon realised that brokerage was probably more my forte than writing reports. And since then, we've grown strength to strength. We've got a sizable team focusing across all sectors of the commercial market. Like Robert said, it's been a challenging few months, but certainly, as you'll hear, we're seeing we're coming out of that, and there's certainly light ahead.
I agree with you, Andrew. Thank you. It has been very interesting. It was a transition. I think we went into lockdown, and then coming back was baby steps. We started with 30% capacity here in our office, and then gradually started shifting it outwards as the announcement came. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to take a lot of questions from the audience today, and have us leverage and lean into the expertise that you guys have. You guys have done this for a very long time. You have gone through the 2008 times, and then through these unprecedented times. So I think there is going to be a lot of learning for all of us to take away. I think first and foremost, everybody has been talking about residential market. I believe what we should do is have all of you coming from your scope of the business, because I understand that Andrew, you guys deal with a lot of warehouses, a lot of commercial, larger space units. Ben and Rob, in your capacity, you guys deal with a lot of SMEs. So I think we should touch upon both of these elements of commercial real estate, and have the experts educate the market on how the last 6 months has been leading into COVID and then coming out of it. So let me start with Ben here. Ben, how has the co-working space evolved over the last 6 months? I believe last year or the year before, I myself saw a trend where there were a lot of business centers setting up, and there was a lot of keen interest in the market around the business centers. Talk to me how you've seen that evolve over the last 6 months.
See, I think, even prior to COVID-19 crisis, the business sector was a growing sector, although the segments in the market in the UAE is very small compared to bigger offices and retails and so on. Business center and co-working sector is for the people that really they don't need a big office, or they don't want to make a huge commitment and make it like a yearly commitment, so they can pay as they go, or they can have a small office. So it gives them a flexibility. Now with COVID-19, a lot of people, they're looking for that flexibility. There's a bit of uncertainty introduced to a few sectors. So maybe, a person who had 1,000 square feet offices, and they don't need that much space, or they're working from home, or they're working with less capacity, they can look at business center and co-working. Again, it's for a startup also, it's a nice place to start. Sometimes with co-working, you would get a hub of entrepreneurs from the same sector that they can buzz from each other, they can work together, they can exchange ideas. So it could be a good incubator for business and innovation as well. So it's not only catering for one sector. It's basically business center. You have different types of business center. You have the co-working, you have the small offices, you've got mix of both. And I see the trend for the future, for the time being, to grow. And I think more and more businesses, they would want that flexibility. So if you compare the UAE market to other Western countries, maybe the percentage of that market is smaller, so it might grow over the next couple of years. So that's where we are in terms of co-working and business centers, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What is your take, Ben? How has this, we all understand that real estate along with every other sector, was hit by COVID-19 with regards to the economic implications. But we also are very aware of the fact that probably our sector is the first one to bounce back as compared to aviation, tourism, hospitality. How do you see the business sector industry evolving post-COVID and moving forward into the next 12, 24 months?
I don't want to be over optimistic, but if you look at essential goods and services, I would say real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, is an essential place for people to reside and work. Maybe people looking at better value, maybe companies, they are consolidating 2 or 3 offices into one, but they still need an office. If you've got 50 employees, you still need a place of work. Maybe they're introducing flexible hours, working from home, but they need, some businesses, they need a physical place. So that's the reason we've seen a bounce back in this. We were just discussing before the panel goes on, and we've seen a bounce back after the lockdown, and that's correct. And people are looking for better value, whether they are looking for better price, maybe they want to pay the same price and get better office quality, better view. Even some companies, they're looking at bringing 2 or 3 offices into one. It is movement. There are people who they are doing some feasibility. They are looking at the prices. They are looking at values. So I would say, because it's essential, I would say, product and service real estate, the way I see it. Okay, so we've got a quicker bounce back. But if you look at other industries, like maybe hospitalities and airlines, it's going to be harder for them to bounce back for now. So that's my intake at the moment on the commercial real estate in terms of COVID-19. Yeah.
Rob, I believe that you share similar kind of scope of the work that your agency does, like Ben. What are your thoughts on co-working and business center? I mean, what's the future of co-working spaces? Because it was quite a fad last year. So how do you see that shape?
I would say it's more than a fad. I would say that it's here to stay. And perhaps there's a misconception as to what co-working and business centers are. So I think Ben will also agree here that actual physical co-working, which is desks space within a business center, is not actually a large portion of business center space. I think from the premium business centers, it's only around 5 to 10% of their overall space. So co-working, in the way that many people think of traditional desk space, is not the biggest part of a business center. Ben touched on this term quite a few times, is that people like business centers because they're flexible, not necessarily because they're a co-working space. So companies, both big and small, like flexibility. They like the shorter lease contracts. They like the flexibility of maybe perhaps easier payment terms, easier cancellation terms. So co-working is here to stay. I think it will only grow within Dubai because we're only scratching the surface of how much co-working space there can be. And I think the tenants like it. Tenants like to have the business center option, either within their building so they can expand, hopefully, or if they win a project, they can take some flexible space. But yeah, feedback from tenants is that tenants like to have business centers within their tower. So yeah, I think it's more than a factor. I think it's here to stay.
Good. Ben, you mentioned yesterday you guys have a business center in, I believe, Dira area. You mentioned that yesterday to me. Do you see the occupancy good or kind of dropping off?
Yeah, so for us, we are lucky enough to have about a 98% occupancy in our business center. But there has been demand for, also rent reduction for, and some tenants are asking us for, grace period and rent-free period. But almost all of them, they want to stay, so which is good. It's an indication that, they want to get a better value and live with us, but at the same time, they want to continue their business. We see a good demand in terms of business center and co-working, and we're getting a lot of inquiries because naturally the bigger size, companies, they're looking, if they wanted to downgrade, they look for the next step, which is flexibility and, smaller offices in business center.
Cool. Andrew, you're awfully quiet. I know you don't like to be quiet. for that
The
long.
rare.
Talk to me. Your scope of business is slightly different. You guys have done this for the last 12 years. I believe Cavendish Maxwell, everybody's familiar with the name. You guys deal with larger office spaces, the entire floor, warehouses, retail. You have your footprint in all the large-scale businesses that a commercial sector would touch. Talk to me. How has your experience been in the last 6 months? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think every sector is different. Some have rebounded more quickly than others. I think, industrial has probably been the most resilient, and perhaps that's because it's easier for businesses to move. If you look at a large-scale office, especially if you're a corporate entity, it goes without saying there's been some recent redundancies. So they're probably looking at more space consolidation or more flexible working from home. To move a corporate office, significant capex. If you're fitting out a full floor, you're looking at millions of dirhams. If you need to move a warehouse, it's a lot simpler. You literally can unscrew the racking and move it across to the warehouse next door very easily. So we've seen a lot of tenants move. We've seen rents come down dramatically over the last 12 months. Have we seen a big price drop between, say, the start of COVID or lockdown to now? No, not really, actually. The rents haven't dropped too much. Our volume of inquiries dropped by about 50% over the COVID period. For industrial, that's bounced back. If not, it's now higher, which is good. Offices haven't rebounded yet. We're not at the same volume of inquiries. We are doing viewings, but I think it's more sort of corporates taking their time, seeing where the market's going, can they get better deals, and then whether there's any capital contribution landlords can give. And it's a similar story in the retail segment as well, that we've seen, a lot of the retailers, unless the landlords are saying, look, here is some capital contribution, some capex allowance towards your fit out, the retailers just won't look at those sites. And they're also looking now more at turnover deals. Retailers, they're saying, look, if there's a high base rent or even a base rent at all, we're not interested. And for the first time ever, I've seen in this region, is landlords now accommodating that. They're saying, yeah, look, we'll give you fit out, we'll give you a turnover rent, we want you here, and it's good for the market.
You were talking to me about the F&B industry yesterday, and you said that even there people are contributing to the likes of the restaurants that are well known, that go ahead and take this as a capital relief or a rent relief. And we've seen the same trends with the stimulus packages that the government has announced. So I think, yeah, we can't say everything is just back to normal. Yes, the interest is really, really high, as we were discussing. The conversions are to be followed, and we see, is it because the pipeline or the pent-up pipeline that was built up during lockdown, or how long is it there to stay? What are your thoughts? I mean, on the same pattern, I would like to hear from you, Andrew. What are your thoughts on the announcement of the change in the Expo 2020 dates? I mean, how do you see that playing in the commercial aspect of the real estate here? How would that change the landscape?
I was speaking to the team only a couple of hours ago about this. We had, I would say, a handful of deals on the table for Expo that were specifically related to Expo. Now, to give you an idea of that, it was like events companies, those in the food sector providing food. It could have been a construction company. Now, those requirements have fallen away. Are they dead? No. It just means that it will be shifted probably a year. We even did a deal with the Expo themselves, right? They took some additional space. Now, all it is just a knock-on effect. It will be within 1 year. We'll probably see those requirements probably come back to the table. In terms of sort of the longer-term impact on occupancy and rents and the benefits of Expo, look, it's such a difficult one to call. You hear a lot in the residential segment, with the amount of tourism that will attract, they then invest in Dubai's real estate. Yeah, I'm sure the same will apply to commercial. I'm sure you will have businesses who maybe come to the Expo and they say, look, this is a great place to do business, and we'll set up. But, it is difficult to put a finger on that, exactly what that will translate to.
Rob, I've spoken to Andrew about warehouses and big businesses. Talk to me about your take on SMEs and their contribution to the economy. How are they impacted in the last 6 months, and what is the recovery cycle as per your knowledge and your observation?
Yes, obviously, I think SMEs play a very vital role within the Dubai economy. Just some high-level stats for everybody in case they're not aware. 95% of the companies in Dubai are SMEs, and they account for around 40% of the workforce. So that SME segment is very, very critical. And obviously, they've been very hard hit during COVID, and cash flow is critical for them. So I think while the stimulus packages from the government have been great, it's very important that that filters down to the SMEs. And I think that's the responsibility of the banking sector here to help with that short-term cash flow. So for us, yeah, it's SMEs are very, very critical. They are the lifeblood of the Dubai economy. They're very, very critical for the workforce. And they are a large segment of the office inquiry, particularly that's coming post-COVID. And when we talk about SMEs, there's also that micro SME, which tends to be within trading companies that have got less than 9 people, and within the service sector, companies with less than 20 people. So that's a big portion of the overall office market. Of course, Dubai is very fortunate that we've got the big clients here as well. We've got the Microsofts, we've got the Twitters, we've got the Googles. They're here as well, and they're great. And they take lots of office space and they hire a lot of people. But the real churn and the real lifeblood is that SME sector. So yeah, I think it's very critical that they're supported by the banking sector, so they can push on and help the Dubai economy kickstart for the second half of the year.
Yeah, I would just to touch upon. Robert hit the nail on the head. The cash flow is what we're really seeing is a challenge just now for all businesses. Every single sort of even the larger businesses, not just the SMEs, but I think the SMEs in particular probably don't have that buffer or that working capital perhaps to ride out this storm, whereas maybe some of these larger companies have the credit lines with the banks that maybe last a few months, 6 months without sort of, coming into difficulty. The challenge with the SMEs is, I think, is drawing down on that stimulus packages from the banks, which has been given to them by the central bank. I saw an announcement out there, obviously, in the last day or two that there is going to be another added stimulus. So hopefully that will ease the burden on the SMEs. But what we are seeing and hearing on the front line and the coal face is that payment of invoices and trade receipts is much slower. If it was, say, 30 days, that's moved out to 60 days. If it was 90 days or 6 months in construction, it's now moving out to 12 months. And, that's really impacting businesses. And I think they're struggling because of that.
I think that is all very relevant. And I have seen similar pattern when it comes to residential interest as well, or the agencies of the composition of the market. It would be the smaller businesses that would be hit the worst. They would need a lot of support. I think everybody's doing their bit, be it coming from partners or the government. I have read about rental holidays, especially for commercial entities, and I think everybody has to do their bit to make sure that we come back out of this quicker and stronger. Onto those lines, then, if I can pick your brains on what kind of interest have you seen in the market? Which areas are doing well for you in terms of interest when it comes to inquiries about office space? Which areas for CRC are really active and actively moving?
We are focusing on SMEs within the UAE, and we've seen a lot of movement within Business Bay for DED license, which is Dubai Economic License. We've seen movement within JLT, which is the free zone DMCC. We also got a number of inquiries coming through for warehousing as well, which is for us has been DIP, Alcos, and Jebel Ali. So these are the, I would say 3 areas that we've been quite active and busy. There is a significant drop for retail. Like, not many people are, willing to take a risk with retails at the moment. But, I would say in terms of offices, the small offices and warehousing, it's been quite, busy, and it's been a good bounce back since COVID.
What kind of incentives are private landlords able to give to their tenants? What have you seen when it comes to private landlords Are they giving a lot of parental holidays, 3 months, 6 months? Are they making it easier, giving them a payment plan? What is the trend that you've observed?
So I think it really depends on the landlord. A lot of landlords trying to look at their tenants' cases case by case. If they have an existing tenant, there has been some rental-free period. There has been some rent deduction and discount. Some landlords are not willing to do that, but I've seen a lot of landlords are being more understanding, especially for the sectors that's been hit. If you are looking at a new contract, I've seen for shell and core offices, the rental-free period is extended from 3 to 6 months for medium-sized office, and even 6 to 12 months for larger spaces. So landlords have been helpful. I also see a lot of government entities that they are landlords. They've also been accommodating as well, and there have been some of those stimulus packages that has been announced, to help the tenants within those free zones. I've seen some landlords accommodate some tenants in terms of giving them some discounts or freeze their payments for 3 months, sometimes up to 6 months. But again, it's case to case. There's no law around this. It depends on the landlord. It depends on the tenant. It depends on how they negotiate about the relationship. But there is some flexibility. We've noticed some flexibility.
Okay, all right. Andrew, how is it playing in the bigger spaces, or let's say in
case by case basis?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, look, it's a case by case. It depends on. Look, undoubtedly, you get every tenant who will chance their arm, right? And they'll write a letter to their landlord. I'm sure the likes of the big supermarkets even tried it, probably despite their sales going through the roof, right? So I think a lot of landlords were a little bit hesitant first, just to say, look, here's 3 months. Same with the education. I'm sure you saw the headlines in Arabian Business of some of the schools and the impact of discounting tuition fees. I think a lot of our landlords have said, look, if you can provide us evidence that your revenues drop by X, then yeah, we'll help you out. But if the sales revenue or the volume of the retailers is performing really well, then they're not going to get that discount. I think what we've probably seen more of is rather than rent-free, more rent deferment. So say, look, we won't cash your check, but we'll cash it on the following quarter, and we'll just delay that, and it'll be knock on. In terms of incentives on new deals, in the retail sector, we've seen, let's take, we did a deal where there was a 5-year lease, and there was almost a few million in terms of capex, along with 12 months plus rent free. So if you're a big tenant, an anchor tenant, there is some good deals out there to be secured. On the office front, similar story. I think it depends on where the office is, whether it's fitted, whether it's shell and core. If you're looking at taking a shell and core space just now of an office, I think you would be, if you're on a 5-year lease, you'd be wanting to push for probably close 12, if not longer, months rent-free. And that's probably as well due to the supply of the market and what's available. Whereas if you try to do the same and say an industrial unit in DIP, you're not going to get that same level of rent-free just because there's not that same level of vacancy and there's not that same level of capex to be put in. You might get, at best, on a warehouse, 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months rent-free on a 5-year lease.
I agree with you, Andrew. It is case-to-case basis, and we've seen all kind of feedback come from small landlords or private landlords all the way up to government institutes, and like you said, that people are, most of the cases, negotiating longer leases at better rates so that they are well sorted when it moves forward. I remember when we went into lockdown, I think one thing that really surprised everybody was that how productive people are from home. Everybody spoke about, oh, this is great. Everybody had the initial teething problems, I believe, in the first week. It took me a long time to adjust to the new normal. I was probably the first one back in the office when we opened our doors on the 3rd of May. But based on how work from home actually was appreciated and embraced by a lot of people, and then we hear the likes of Twitter and Google globally saying that, okay, this is more productive, people can work from home. Rob, I'd like to pick your brains on this. What do you think? How would that play on office space and leasing requirements moving forward? Is work from home going to impact it largely, or people would still like to have their name on the office plate? How do you see that planning?
So I think there are lots of theories and surveys out there, and we've all probably got our own opinions having worked from home for a period of time. I think that the reality is that, again, it's probably not as black and white as people say, that everybody's going to work from home or everybody's going to come to the office. There's going to be a hybrid where, of course, certain companies will have a work from home policy. Again, depending on the industry, depending on the job role, depending on the company. I think we have to understand here is that an office is more than just a space. It's also a company's culture. And that office is a manifestation of a company's culture. And all the great companies realize that an office can be a way to retain people, a way to hire new people, because that is that culture which you don't get working from home. So yes, I think people will ask for more flexibility in terms of maybe, depending on their role, certain hours working from home or certain days working from home. I think the companies realize that that is the future. But are we going to shift to a complete work from home policy? No, I don't think so. I think people want to come back to work, but I think they want the comfort that it's safe to come back to work. So is the office environment safe? Are the social distancing rules in place? And also, is the building safe? So building owners, asset managers need to realize that tenants need to feel comfortable to first come back into the building. And then second, for the actual tenants and the occupiers, is it safe to come back to the actual office? Yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
I agree with you. I think it's not just about the space, it's also about the culture. It's also about the job role you have. Some are more productive when they are placed in an office, and some probably are more productive when they work from the confinement and the comfort of their own home. Andrew, what is your favorite bit? Do you like to come to work every day? You do 2 days during the week?
I just found myself going to the fridge too much, to be honest. So that's why I was most excited to get back to the office. It was more for my waistline and my sanity. I
Were
think,
you also
look,
your fridge?
yeah, and plus I got a bit mad and I shaved my head, and so I was glad to get back to the office. For me, like, look, offices are like, people are social, right? We're human beings. For me, I like being in the office. I like having a cup of coffee with my colleagues. I like having a chat and hearing what the valuers are up to. I like hearing what the research team have been uncovering. I think that's the important part, where is, yes, there's a place from working from home. Some days I like it when I need to get a lot done and I don't need to be distracted. It's nice to have a morning at home and working from my computer, but for most of the time, for me, I personally like structure. I like getting up early in the morning. I like working out, then heading to the office and having my day. Whereas when I was at home, I felt it was a bit disruptive. And, one moment I'm talking to someone or walking to the fridge, getting distracted. So for me, I think offices are very much here to stay. Whether there's a slightly different form, whether there's more flexible, whether there's more sort of, maybe even companies will have 2 offices, like co-working, maybe one at one side of town, one at the other side of town. I think, that's the way we see it. But definitely office, I definitely don't think so.
Ben, how do you see the social distancing guidelines impacting co-working, and how is that actually implemented in business centers where we rent out desk spaces? I mean, how does that work? Hi, Ben.
Cool. Yes, can you hear me? So
yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. So I think the concept of social distancing, it's something that it's new for a lot of people. Again, what Andrew was saying, I agree. I'm the same. I want to come to work. I want to communicate with people, get to team meetings, and sometimes with the social distancing, it's going to be difficult for people to change. And obviously, it's very important for our health and safety and continuing coming back to work that we social distance. So I would say in the business centers where you've got a co-working, what we are seeing is a lot of people actually implementing social distancing. So you will be sitting not next to the seat available next to you, so they will give it space. So the business centers are trying to create that social distancing by actually giving shifts to people, sometimes asking people to book for a desk. So I think it's new, it's difficult sometimes for some businesses, but business centers in general and some offices that manage this well. I know some companies that have shift A, shift B, or you come 1 week and the other week, although we are allowed to come 100%, but a lot of companies are taking that initiative to still make sure they manage that social distancing in the right way.
I think you'll actually, this is what will be interesting is I think the good grade A offices will really stand out because we've got a social distancing from lifts, and a lot of the buildings here do not have enough lift provision. So I think the owners of good quality towers will stand to benefit from this, because a lot of people, new companies, when they're now looking at buildings, they're saying, well, we don't want to wait 5 minutes every morning at peak traffic just to get in the lift. So I think we'll probably see what we see is that two-tier market. I think the older stock, the more deteriorated stock, or the ones that aren't sort of grade A, will probably see bigger drops in rents and occupancy compared to sort of those newer grade A buildings, which have adequate provisions, good parking. I think they'll hold their occupancy a lot better and their rents.
I agree with that. Rob, I have a question for you, which is pretty much similar on the same lines as to what Andrew was just saying. Somebody from the crowd wants to know, what are your thoughts on consolidation in the commercial property segment during lockdown and post-lockdown? Some people are looking to upgrade their offices. Which locations are they looking at? Where have you seen interest with regards to relocation? And which locations have seen more of readjustment to budgets and downsizing? That was a long question, so I'd give it to you first.
Sure. So I think Ben touched on the areas that have probably been in the most demand. And I think we're on the same page there, that in the onshore license world, business bay has always been very, very active. And in the free zone world, JLT, DMCC would be the main option for people looking at a free zone license. So I think Andrew just touched on this as well, that the better buildings will always do well. And I think you've heard for many years this term of flight to quality. And all that means is that people are constantly upgrading. So the people that were in the older side of town, perhaps they're Dubai, are looking to move south, either into Sheikh Zayed Road and Business Bay. So upgrade from potentially older stock into newer grade buildings. And then people that were in potentially B grade buildings are looking to upgrade into A grade buildings. So consolidation has been a theme post-COVID. It was a theme pre-COVID as well. Companies are always looking to how do they maximize their layouts, how do they make the best use of their office space, how do they consolidate people, how do they get people that were disparate in two offices communicating into one office. So I think that's been the general flow of people upgrading from older stock, from C grade into B grade, and people upgrading, especially now the prices have come down, from B grade stock into A grade stock.
Cool. Andrew, the next question I have here is for you. What is your opinion on Dubai Commerce City announcement? And how do you think it's going to shape up moving forward when it's ready for occupancy?
E-commerce?
Yes.
Yeah, so look, e-commerce is, I think 2 years ago we saw a big shift in e-commerce. We saw a lot of demand, and a lot of that was out at Dubai South. Because they had both free zone and non-free zone plot options. So, what the challenge has really been, I think, for most e-commerce players is operating from within a free zone. Because of the speed that goods needs to clear the gates, it's always been a challenge. So the recent announcements about having a dedicated e-commerce zone, which is linked to customs, is certainly of great benefit to the economy and the free zone itself. In terms of new e-commerce requirements, yeah, look, it's it's already grown sizably. So if you look at the amount of space that perhaps, say, Amazon and Noon have taken, they're largely accommodated now already in the UAE. I think most of their growth now will come in other GCC regions, the likes of Saudi, Egypt, Jordan, or Kuwait, and Oman, probably after that. But in the UAE itself, I think we've probably seen most of the growth already in e-commerce. We still do get requirements from smaller online retailers, but we're not talking here like 30,000, 40,000 square foot. The likes of taking 200,000 square foot warehouses, 400,000 square foot warehouses. We're not getting those requirements from e-commerce players just now. What you might see is build to suit deals. And what Robert just touched upon that word, flight to quality. The same with, say, an office space. Warehousing space, I think, is probably, I would say, behind the rest of the world here, particularly outside of free zone. So areas like DIP, Al-Qas, the quality of the warehousing is very poor. It doesn't suit what some of these big e-retailers or e-commerce players need, whether that's lack of height or lack of loading or ease of access. So what I suspect you'll see is that a lot of these tenants, because they're not able to find quality warehousing, they might look to develop their own or speak to a developer or an investor who will build it on their behalf, subject to them entering into a long-term pre-lease commitment.
Another question, I thank you for your thoughts there and your feedback on that, Andrew, and your point of view. Doug, would you like to add anything to that? Because I'm getting a lot of questions and I think people really want to understand how is this part of the real estate sector going to move forward. Rob and Ben, would you like to add anything to that, the e-commerce city space? How is that going to be looking like moving forward? Rob?
Yes, I think Andrew's covered lots of those points. Is that for the big players, their footprint within Dubai is pretty much set. Most of that growth is going to be outside of the UAE and the rest of the GCC. So we are seeing quite a few inquiries coming in on the office side from trading entities, especially e-commerce, which has been growing as we know, and that's been expedited over the last few months. So yes, it is growing, and I agree 100% with Andrew that the onshore warehouse stock has got some serious quality issues, particularly in the areas that he's mentioned. So you are going to see, I think, people looking to either build to suit, which we just touched on, or potentially owners of the existing warehouse stock looking to upgrade that stock significantly to compete with the free zone options. Agreed.
Cool. Well, thank you. I will ask Andrew. And how do you see the prices in the commercial sector settling and stabilizing over the next 12 months, if they are going to? And somebody's asked that of all of you.
I think Andrew touched base with the pricing. We've seen prices are dropping over the last 2 to 3 years. Slowly, there has been an adjustment since 2015, even 2016. And to be honest with you, before COVID prices, I was thinking this is the bottom of the market. Expo 2020 coming, hopefully, the prices can rise again. But then COVID-19 has come, and that gives us a new dimension in terms of negotiation, rent-free, flexibility, and all that. I think, to be honest with you, we are kind of coming to a situation with sales prices in commercial, maybe in JLT and some area, where build cost is going to be less than the sales of ready prices. So we don't see that dropping under a certain limit. Also, with rental, there's service charges for landlords. Sometimes I see that the service charges that the landlord pays, they only get 10 dirham or 15 dirham on top of that, and there's not really much margin for them to give more discounts. So I think I'm hopeful that in 2021 we see a slow plateau of reduction in rental and sales prices in commercial, and we will see an uptake. But again, there's other elements. It's supply and demand. It's about the economy itself. As you know, at the moment, globally, a lot of countries are suffering. So there's many elements, but my hope and my prediction is that there will be some kind of, adjustment in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your thoughts there. Rob, I'm going to ask the same of you and Andrew, because I think this is in sync with what we want to wrap up the webinar with. So Rob, what are your thoughts based on, I know of course there's a lot of reports and studies. What are you guys observing? And what are your thoughts moving forward?
So I think that similar to Ben, we were looking at, I think most people were looking at 2020 as the year when optimism was high, Expo was here, positive market sentiment. I think that will all be just pushed out into 2021. Timing may work out well. It's the Golden Jubilee. Fingers crossed that the vaccine will be out, by the time we approach Expo. So all the positive sentiment that we've lost this year, we just see that being pushed out to next year. We were optimistic on 2020. We're now optimistic on 2021. We think that we were in a soft market anyway. So we were oversupplied in certain areas of the commercial market, particularly office space. So some people now that were looking to quickly finish off their buildings in time for Expo may push that back, which means that we won't get so much supply in the market in 2020, which is a good thing. But I think, overall we are optimistic on the second half of this year as there's been pent-up demand. And I think what we have to understand is that leases are always expiring in Dubai. Lots of people are on one-year contracts, so they have to do something, which means that, okay, perhaps they're not growing, but perhaps they're downsizing, but there's still something happening. The real estate world is always moving. So yes, April and May were very, very challenging, but June has been good in terms of the lead volume. We need to see that, I think, translate into transactions. But based on the pipeline, we're optimistic on the second half of this year.
Andrew, would love to get your thoughts on it.
I'll give a politician's answer. I think it really depends on the sector and probably even the area to some extent. Everything is driven by supply and demand. If I take, for example, onshore or outside of free zone warehousing, the stock is very limited. There's not high vacancy there. So I can't see, if you've got a good bit of warehousing, and I can't see why it would fall any further, because there is demand there. But then if you look at offices, there's admittedly no shortage of grade A offices coming to market and on the market just now. So I think it will take longer for prices maybe to bottom out in the office segment. I think industrial will still go a little bit further. I think in the free zone it will definitely go further because there's an oversupply there. I think in the hospitality sector, I think it's going to be a very tough year for tourism and hotels. I think that goes without saying. I think in the school market, similar story. It depends on whether how many people return or come to Dubai or leave Dubai. I think that will be a challenging few years ahead. On the investment sector, which is we class as sort of capital markets, which is more institutional income producing, I already think it's bottomed out. I think, look, if someone comes with me with a requirement and says, Andrew, I want a prime residential building, and by prime I mean something in the marina or City Walk or downtown, single owned, fully rented, and I want to achieve a yield of 7 or 8%, you won't find it. It's not there. Do I think there's yields or returns will move out in the more peripheral areas like DSO and Sports City? Yeah, I think yields might move out to 8, 9, 10% there. But I certainly think for prime institutional grade assets, whether it's a residential building or a commercial office let to I don't know, Google or Facebook, if that was to ever come to the market, I don't think you'll see yields move out any further than they're at just now. Just because of the weight of money in the market, you've got Saudi funds, you've got local funds, you've got overseas funds, and there's just not that supply of that type of product. So you've got the weight of money chasing that, which compresses the yields. So I think, Luke, my answer is it very much depends on the sector and the locale. But I do think by maybe start of next year, most segments of the market will be moving towards a positive direction at last.
Perfect, perfect. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. I think this is going to be just the beginning of more regular conversations and chats we do, because I think what you guys bring to the table is very unique. Like I earlier mentioned, when people talk about real estate, automatically we think about residential. However, I believe commercial is the hub, which really solidifies the economy and can really take it to the next level. And I think we would have a lot of exciting updates as we progress during the year. Everybody wants to understand what is the impact of work from home. Sadly, people understand commercial as office space, but I think since you guys have shared your thoughts, Andrew has been very generous, sharing his opinion on all the bigger elements of the commercial aspect of real estate here. All of this has been very knowledgeable, and I'm sure the audience, with the amount of questions I was getting today, shows that this was of great interest to them. So we should be doing more regular episodes on commercial element of real estate. Before I say thank you to the audience, any parting thoughts from your side, Rob, Ben, Andrew, please. Rob, would you like to share some? Okay, we'll go to Ben.
Ben was just ready to say something, so I'll let him go first. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say is that I think the commercial sector, it's a growing sector, but there's, as you said, there's not a lot of emphasis when people think of real estate. It's mostly residential. I'm hoping that we can have as a collective a consensus on a shift towards laws and regulation of commercial market, because I think laws and regulations of commercial market is kind of copy paste of residential, and I think in some countries it's totally different. So I'm hoping that we can have more seminars, more gatherings of heads of real estate and commercial, like the experience like Andrew and Rob and myself and other people that can sit with land department and can influence them to write some regulation policies and laws which is more niche for commercial market. So that's that. If I had one wish that out of these webinars and seminars and meetings something comes up, is that we get some kind of influence with land department where we can actually have some policies and laws written for the commercial only.
Absolutely. Yeah. We will put this on our list and we'll make sure that we get this to happen. Rob, your thoughts?
So I first of all agree 100% with Ben. I would love to see a more specific commercial side to both the commercial brokerage licensing, where commercial brokers can currently sit a very residential based exam and get their commercial broker license. So I think I've always been pushing behind the scenes, but it'd be great if we could collectively all get together and try to drive that, better the industry, raise the educational standards for everybody here. So I agree 100%. I think maybe just 3 short messages. I think for owners, and this is more for individual owners and not government owners, is support the tenants, be flexible, listen to people that have got real cases, help the economy, help the tenants get through this short-term period where we're all in it together, right? We all want Dubai to succeed, we all want to stay here, we all enjoy the country. The country's been very, very good to me personally. So I think for the owners, be flexible and listen to tenants. I think for the tenants, they should understand that there are opportunities out there right now, and they should approach people like us where those opportunities are to try and some potential deals for them. I think for the broker community, just try to stay positive. I know it's very easy to get in the cycle that the world is ending, my job has changed, it's shifting online. Specifically in commercial, I think that the world will always need brokers. Deals are far too complicated to go completely online, which I know is the talk of the town right now. So I think for the broker community, just try to stay positive. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
That was a very nice and a thoughtful message, Rob. I liked it. Andrew.
Well, hopefully your wishes are my command. I've actually Hindam Ari, who's now the CEO of the Dubai Real Estate Institute, we've started a commercial real estate brokers course So now, hopefully, this is the first step towards licensing, and those wanting to practice commercial real estate will go down the commercial real estate brokers taught by yours truly. I'll try and make it as entertaining as possible. So, look, the Dubai Land Department are definitely trying to make inroads into that, and they recognise that that the paths perhaps need to change. And of course, with anything, I think in Dubai, it does take time, and the steps are moving in the right direction at last, which is good. So hopefully, we will see a sort of different class of brokerage coming shortly. I do share that I think some of the laws do need updated. I think there's too much blurring between the residential laws and the commercial laws. And again, and hopefully that will come in time. On I guess rounding up in the market as a whole, I think, as Rob says, you just got to stay positive. Like, you know, Dubai is no different to any other economy in the world. It's cyclical. Real estate is cyclical. It is not a short-term play. You should see this as a long-term game. For tenants, negotiate hard. This is the best time you'll have in the next probably 5 to 10 years to get some really good deals. Use guys like Rob, Ben, myself. We'll argue and fight your corner. Landlords will equally will protect your position, and we'll turn down these deals. So Luke, I appreciate your time today, and I very much enjoyed it.
Well, same here, and Andrew was politically correct and very encouraging and giving positivity out. So, well, thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your thoughts, taking the time out, and to the audience, we commit ourselves to bringing you more and more valuable webinars moving forward, where we all stay connected and we learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.